We have published the first short story of the Townsend Farms Inn Chronicles. I cannot thank you enough if you've read all 5 chapters and followed me on Substack. It's been quite the month, and I'm really excited that I did it.
Thank you.
And now to answer some questions. I said I was going to do a Q&A, and thankfully I have one of the most incredible readers who read every chapter and let me know, and it really just filled my spirit and my heart in ways I can't even explain. And so uniquely, Ashanti's Corner did send me some questions that I'm going to start answering right now, just to give a bit more context to the story, how it came about, and then also the plans for future stories. My name is Dominique, and I am a writer. This is my channel and my space for documenting my journey to becoming a published author one day. And so this particular story, Grand Opening, is the first in what I hope is a series of stories, like episodic type stories, of these 2 women, Edna and May, who are running a bed and breakfast in rural Virginia. The town, Townsend Farms, is a made-up town, and it comes from a lot of different things. I grew up in Virginia, in Hampton Roads, throughout high school, and I also went to college down there. So I had a little bit of that playing around in it. I just realized this too. I'd also recently read Demon Copperhead. I just read that, and I was so fascinated by the idea of these very small towns in Virginia. I haven't even gotten to the question yet. I'm just chatting. Yeah, so I made up this town, and then on top of it, I just come across my copy of The Known World by Edward P. Jones, and for some reason in my brain, I just married all of these things. I really wanted to explore what an all-Black town would look like in America that started as an all-Black town during the antebellum years. In The Known World, I have it here. Okay, so The Known World was played a huge role in all of this. The character Henry Townsend, who is freed by his enslaver and then given some property, and he ends up becoming a slave owner himself. And this book explores so many things as far as freedom and slavery, and just what slavery did to everyone, because slavery touched everyone. If you haven't read it yet, I really, really think you should give it a read, because it's absolutely fantastic. The way it makes you contemplate how freedom actually shows up in the kind of traditions that we follow, and with who we follow them. If it's our master, our employer, our the person that is giving us resources in a state, or if it's actually from family members and that love and the blood bonds, and really, really expansive. But I'm rambling so much. Let's bring it all back. So I made up the town from Henry Townsend's estate and whatever little piece of land this Black population could still hold on to, and then brought it to modern times. And the year that this all starts is 2019. The B&B is opened in 2019, and I have it just taking place around this time. So yeah, I don't even know if that's going to be a question, but I've just given the answer to that. Let's start to get into it. But I just want to thank uniquely Ashanti's Corner for sending me all of these questions and giving me something to go off of. So what inspired me to create a story where the main characters are of the older generation? So I had a little bit of an interesting new year, or the start of the year. I found all these family photos, and I decided to bring it back with me, and I also reconnected with some family members. And I just started to think so much of how much I miss my grandparents, I guess, and also miss the opportunities that I didn't get to have with them because I was so young and you don't understand the concept of time, and to cherish the time that you have with people around you. And it just dawned on me how much I didn't know about them, and still don't know about them. And so I'm receiving a little bit of, family lore from time to time, but it's not enough. And the other part of it is, once I'm 37 years old, and I realize a lot of the media, the books that I've consumed, the television shows, the films that I've watched, there's this aspirational quality to them. And so when I watched Living Single or Sex and the City, there was a sense of, oh, when I get to that age, I'm going to experience those things. And now that I'm at the age where all of the shows that I've already watched and the books that I've, read that gave me some sort of idea of the future have essentially come to pass, I'm like, what do I look forward to now? And especially being a single woman and I'm living in a foreign country and I have to constantly be intentional about the community that I'm building around me, I realized I needed something to look forward to. And so I don't think that we know enough about what life feels like and looks like in our later years. Like we put so much attention on youth and when we're young, and we think that if life hasn't happened at that moment, then it's never going to happen. And I refuse to believe that. And so I just wanted to give myself something to look forward to, and I wanted to give myself something to explore and to have some hope and some fun built around it. And yeah, and I watch a lot of Golden Girls. It's my background TV show, and it fills me with so much joy when I see these women like still living their lives. And, they're only in their 50s, I believe, 50s, 60s, which isn't old when you really think about it. And the fact that we really do sequester such a large portion of our lives almost into this abyss of nothingness or of just we don't have a lot of examples of what there is still to look forward to. And so I just wanted to create a world in which I was giving myself something to look forward to. So was the blackout in this story inspired by the one you experienced, or was it a coincidence? It was a coincidence. So I started working on this story months ago, and I already knew like the blackout happened, and I was just trying to get to the point of understanding why the blackout happened, or even understanding how to fix the blackout. And I knew I wanted to play around with the concept of fuel and like still having fuel in the tank. And I think that was such a driving force for me. And so I was so married to that I held on to it the most, because I probably could have changed the power outage to something else. And when I was sending it to a friend, one of my friends who's been my beta readers, thank you so much, Emily, she was saying to me that because the way that the ending was it was a bit wonky, I should say. And she was like, I don't really think you need to explain it that much. Like there could be a way to resolve it. All the other pieces of the ending were there, and obviously like the power was going to come back on. But she was just saying like, I don't need to go so much into the weeds. But that weekend, I just remember I was thinking so much about it, and I just kept Googling like power outages and trying to understand electrical engineering, like just going into this deep dive of something that I didn't even know where to begin or like what kinds of questions to ask. So that Monday when I like sat down to write, I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to take her advice and, just try to clean this up and not explain it too much. And then the power went out. And so all of the news articles the next day, when I was able to read up on what happened, started to explain just what they had to do in order to bring power back and electricity and, understanding the process of what a black start is. And I was just so overwhelmed with the coincidence of this whole thing, where this answer that I was looking for and didn't know how to go and find it actually literally fell in my lap. And I just, it was incredible. But 100% a coincidence. Number 3, what advice would you share for someone who wants to write short serial fiction but struggles to condense details? This is probably outside of my pay grade, outside of my expertise, because I feel like I'm still learning. But I will say that the thing about this story is that I actually intended it for it to be longer, like a novel length, or even just like a series of novels. And so being able to zero in on very specific things that I want to say, or like a very specific scene or a very specific moment that I want to write to, helped me to really reduce all of the moving pieces that were going on. So I would just say find a scene, find a theme, find a moment that you're writing to, and write to that, and leave all the other pieces, like put it in another document because it might work for something else. And that's the best that I can give you right now, because I'm just figuring it out myself, and I'm not sure that I'm doing it correctly. But when I do find out, I will let you know. Number 4, can you share details on how you designed the cover? Also, what advice can you share on how writers can brainstorm ideas for a book cover? So the cover was really interesting. I started studying a few book covers and just, Googling stories that I read. And I noticed how intentional the graphics were. And there would be, just moments from in the story, or if it's a motif or any sort of metaphor or anything like that. And then how they would create the cover from that. If you haven't read the story, like, spoiler alert, I knew that I wanted to have those lanterns on the cover and have some element that spoke to the power outage. And I knew I wanted to have the keys, because I just thought it would be really cool as well, after you finish reading the story and then you look at the book cover again and you're like, the keys. And so, yeah, I knew I had those pairs floating around in my head. And then after that, I used Canva predominantly for this. I had to just play around with it. I will say it's very time consuming and it's very tedious, and especially when you're not a graphics designer. Like, it's not my ministry. I'm not very good with like visual art. But yeah, I just played around with it, and I just kept waiting until it seemed right. And what was really interesting is that I think I was learning a lot more about how to, like, learning textures and, putting multiple things and just how to make it a bit more readable. So I have such a newfound respect for book cover designers, and I can't wait to actually work with, a real one that knows what they're doing, and to never have to do that again. But I think it's pretty fun, and it's really interesting because it's a part of the storytelling process as well. I just really, really have so much respect for them. Number 5, did you intend to keep the Townsend Farms and Chronicles as 5 chapters, or did you realize later to conclude it there? Just because this is the episode 1, I knew it was going to end there, and I have other story ideas in mind, and I knew that those would be their own standalone things. I can't remember now if there was any like clear moment in which I knew that, because whenever I'm writing, doing that first draft and telling myself the story, there's a sense of knowing. I can't tell you exactly what it is, why it is, or apply any logic to it, but you know when to end the story. And so I just knew that, like, once that power came back on, it was the time for the end to then to be open and to have all the other stories that are going to come down the pipeline. Number 6, who was your favorite character to write and your least favorite character to write from this series? I think Connie is really fun, and I really love the dynamic between her and May, and also what that sets up for the friendship between them and Edna. I really love ensemble cast. I rely so heavily on the humor from shows like Living Single, or even Martin, with the rivalry between Pam and Martin. But I just like the idea of people who, there's clearly some animosity that's there, or like a level of dislike, but there's still such a foundation of love and respect that comes out later, like once you understand it, because on the surface you only see the things that are like pulling them apart. And so I really love it because you get the best roast out of that. Like, I don't think that you can roast someone without having some love that's living somewhere in there, and maybe you just have to find your way to it. So I really enjoy when Connie comes into the picture, because it just makes it really fun. And I also think that she's a really fun character. I think I have a little bit of Whitley Gilbert in mind when I'm writing Connie as well. And she's just so witty, and the things that she says and her way of life. And she's very, I think people would say, conceited or selfish or anything or something like that. But she just carries herself in this very elegant, but also sharply witted, she will cut you with her words kind of way. So I'm really having fun trying to get to that point where I imagine that she's a character that is a standout character. So, and there's a lot of different things with her character. Like, I really enjoy Connie. And my least favorite, in this one in particular, it was probably the blogger. I remember when I first sent it to my mom was like, "Oh, I really want it more from the blogger." I was like, "Why?" And then as I was writing it, I realized the reason I didn't want to like go that deep with him was because of how dismissive he is. And so, but he's my least favorite, but it was whatever. Number 7, how did you create vivid details about where the Townsend Farms and Chronicles takes place? Was it personal experience, or did you research the details? see the beginning of this video because I'll go into this with number 8, which is let's talk about the room names. I named the rooms from famous Virginia people throughout history. And I don't know if anyone has seen this already, like on this channel, but I'm not very good at coming up with names. And it is probably the area where I struggled the most. And so when it was time to, to name the rooms, I was like, I don't know, like, am I going to choose literary characters and then Edna wins the battle? Or am I going to give it more of a, atmospheric and describe different travel things and May wins? And it only made sense to have it be very Virginia specific and obviously Black Virginia specific. So I had a little bit of fun with that. In the very beginning, I thought it was so cringe and I thought it was just going to be a placeholder. And then later I would find a different theme to base the rooms off of. But it was a really interesting process sticking with that. And then once I committed to it, I was like, you know what, we'll just see how this goes. And then I also just really like the idea of having photos in the foyer and going up this stairwell. And it just reminded me of certain restaurants that I would go to and they had photos of famous people that had come through. And maybe it's an aspirational thing too for the inn to have famous people to come stay there and also to take in the history of this place. So more on that a little bit later. But yeah, so that kind of, I know I answered it in the very beginning, but the details about the place definitely come from things that I've read, the things that I've experienced in my life in Virginia. I hold Virginia to it holds such a dear space in my heart because I think of all the states, it's actually one of the most fascinating. I think there's so much that's happening in that state and the history is just so rich, and the things that America stands for and the things that America, just all of the moving pieces of America. I don't want to get into like too much political history things. Virginia is like it's the spot. It's microcosm of change. And yeah, I think there's a name for it. It's like the mother state. And that's what I feel like. I feel like I was really trying to just tap into the essence of it being a mother state and just everything that's birthed from that. So yeah. So thank you. I can't believe I had all of this to say. I thought it was going to be a very short video, but thank you so much, Ashanti, for your questions. And if you haven't read the first episode, grand opening of the Townsend Farms and Chronicles, you can find it on my Substack. I will link it down below. Definitely give it a read. You can let me know what you think. You can ask me more questions. I'll answer them if I can, and when I can. And yeah, I hope to bring the second story this summer. I'm working on it right now and I have a pretty good idea of what this draft looks like, but I'm now going through all of the motions. I'm like, oh, is this cringe? Is this actually what I want this story to be? But it is, the story itself has shown itself. It's complete and I'm in there just tweaking away. And I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to work with an editor on this because, as you all also know, like, money is tight. And so, yeah, I'm just going to get it to the best place that I can and not stress out about the whole editor aspect of it. Send it to beta readers, and then I will let you know the schedule for when that one will come out. But it is a doozy. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this Q&A. If you have any more questions, you can drop them down below. I will see you next week with another video. Bye.